Hello, hello, everyone. Happy Wednesday and happy being human first. So, today we have a really great conversation, and I'm going to just talk a little bit while we wait for some more people to come in and join the event. This is our Being Human First series. This is a three-part series that we created really around the time of, well, I was planning all of this back in December. So we were looking at the new year and the way that people structure their goals and set their energy for the new year, which actually, while we're waiting, if you'd like to put any of your New Year's resolutions in the chat or how you feel about New Year's or maybe where you're at with your resolutions, I would love to hear about that. So there's always so much emphasis on the things that we do, right? Like I'm gonna work out more, I'm gonna eat better, or whatever it is. And sometimes it's an idealistic approach, but a lot of it isn't it's focused on doing more, but not being more satisfied, not being happier in who we are, not being more fulfilled in the way that we show up. We just think that we have to do more and accomplish more and be more without focusing on what does it actually feel like to be on that part of the journey, right? So, when we were putting together the Being Human First series, it was the conversation of how do we help people as we step into a new year, as we're changing and growing and evolving, how do we help people have this conversation where you're not everything that you do. You're not all of your accomplishments, you're not all of your accolades. They're all good, they're all great, they're all fantastic, but if they're subconsciously or consciously causing you stress every day, day in and day out, or they're just big burdens and big loads for you, then how do we teach you how to redefine that? How do we teach you that you're more than a machine, that you're more than just this producer of things, right? And that is where Being Human First was birthed. Because before we do anything else, before we put on the suit and the tie or whatever cap we put on with our title for our roles, we are who we are before all of that, right? And our jobs are important and the work that we do matters, but there's a lot more that comes into the story than just that. So that's where Being Human First was birthed from. And for those of you who don't know what Life Guides is, who we are, what we do, all of the above, I'll give you a little bit of an intro. So, with that, Life Guides, for those of you who don't know, we are Life Guides. We are a personal and professional mentorship and coaching company. And well, platform really. So, we've got guides like Dr. Dave, he's the VP of our guides community, and he'll get more of a formal introduction as we go along. And Priscilla, one of our guides, real people who have been through real experiences just like you and can provide you guidance and coaching and mentoring to get to where you want to go. So that's the basis of Life Guides. We have many different categories that you can select from where you get to choose this is the area of my life that I'm looking to grow in, whether it's financial well-being, or whether it's family matters, or whether you're looking to have an accountability partner or boost your well-being, or maybe you're going through a divorce, whatever. We've got people who can help you and who can help support you. And what I say about mentorship and coaching is it's like you have a time capsule, right? It's like you're put into a time machine because you get to work with someone who's already done it. And you get to work with someone who has already walked the path in life that you're on, whether you chose it or not, or that you're like, this is where I actually want to go. So, with that, you have someone who's already gone through that experience and they get to give you their insight and wisdom and help you. So I have a financial well-being guide, and I was telling her, I was like, I want to do this. And instead of her being like, no, you can't do that, Kira, she was like, can I tell you how that didn't work for me in the past? And after 5 minutes of hearing her story, I was like, oh, yeah, absolutely. I get it. I probably don't want to do that. But I would have, if it was just Kira living her own little life, I would have done that and I would have had to learn the hard way. But instead, someone else already learned the hard way, and now I just get to reap the rewards. So that's how it ends up being kind of a time machine, right? So Life Guides is here for you. It's a benefit that your employers have paid for. You get to use it for as many calls for as many reasons as you'd like. We have many guides who are certified in a myriad of different things, and they get to help you and support you. But really, it's a human to human connection platform. So you get someone who gets to help you grow. And with that, to use Life Guides, you can go to app.lifeguides.com. I'll drop it in the chat for you here, and you can register. You can see all the categories that we have our guides for. You can be like, okay, these are the multiple places that I want to grow in. And it filters through and it shows you guides who are a match to what you're looking to grow in. So you'll see their picture, you'll see an intro video, you'll see their bio, and then you can go ahead and schedule a call. It can be as long or as short as you want. It can be on whatever topic you're interested in. And from there, you have a guide. If you really love your guide, stay with them. If you're like, I'd like to try another guide and see if I can have a different relationship. That's there for you as well. So that's Life Guides. That's what we do. We hope that these events show you who we are, the amazing people that we have who are here to support you, and that it inspires you to continue seeking out the guidance and the mentorship and the coaching that we all absolutely deserve. Because I know we live in a really individualistic society, but we all need each other and we operate and thrive a lot better when we're not doing everything alone. And with that, I'm actually curious, drop 111 in the chat if you tend to lone wolf your life, where it's just you, and you're like, I'm gonna get through it, and I'm gonna power through, and I don't need to ask anyone questions, and I got this. Yeah, I know that I can relate to that. Priscilla, Dr. Dave, maybe you all can as well, but it's you get a lot done, but it's not always the best. So let me give these two introductions and then we'll start like an actual conversation. But I feel like that's a great place to start in realizing that like you don't have to do it all alone, right? So we have our very own Dr. Dave. He is the VP of our guides community. He is a neuroscientist. He also just has this like very calm, cool, grounded energy to him where he can have a conversation about anything and it just makes sense and it feels good. And I love having him on these sessions because I don't know about you, but that's the type of energy that I want in my life. So without further ado, Dr. Dave, I would love to hear a little bit more about maybe your personal experience being a lone wolf and not having support and what that looked like in your personal and in your professional life.
Thank you. So, can I just get you to do all my intros from now on? I'll just anything I do, you're there. I appreciate that. Thank you for everyone being here. First of all, I want to address all the 111s in the chat. Looks like we have a lot of lone wolves on this call, so uh, you may be able to connect with this story, which is a personal story of mine. Yes, I was basically tailed to make things happen. I'm not going to use the other word that was used, but make stuff happen. And sometimes that means long hours figuring it out on your own, working through those challenges, especially if you're an entrepreneur or you're an entrepreneur. You're working with an organization to help them grow. And what I continuously found was that I was pushing so much time in places that really weren't bringing back the results that I needed. And I had to learn how to let things go that I thought were going to be a part of my life for a long time. And what also helped me was to be humble enough to ask other professionals for support. So what I did was I used the resources around me, and this is a true story. We were talking right before this session about Priscilla's book, and I had just had this difficult time when it came to really assessing myself and how much am I putting on myself. And so I got Priscilla's book. So I wanted to show it because
Oh,
it
thank you.
it helped me so much because I didn't have to do it alone. But more than that, I could put language to what I was experiencing. So I could say, oh, okay, this is happening because of these factors. What factors can I change to bring about a different result? Well, let's give this a test and see if it happens. If it happens, let's replicate it. It's the whole thing of practicing and learning. But the important thing was being humble enough to actually ask for help. So, from my experience, being a lone wolf is a part of our life. We have individual uh, pieces that we have to do, but we're a community. We're really a greater community around the world, and we have to work towards growth. That's really it. So that's my experience. I wanted to definitely mention that.
Thank you for that. I love that you just mentioned Priscilla's book. That is so perfect for our intro to Priscilla, but I think a lot of people can relate to the doing it all your own yourself, right? And I used to think that I could do everything, but now that I've realized that I've got amazing people around me, I'm like, you know what? I've got weaknesses. I'm not good at everything at all. Like there are some things that I'm so good at, and there are other things where I'm like, I'm not good at that, but I know they are, and I know that they love it. And it's things like that where you get to be cohesive and you get to help someone else live out what they're good at and be who they are while you get to be who you are, right? So, with that, we have Priscilla. She is one of our guides. So, on our platform, when you register and you select your little topics, you can literally find Priscilla and book a call with her and have her support you on her journey. So, she is a spiritual mentor and business strategist, and she helps soul driven entrepreneurs create sustainable, world changing businesses that support the greater good. Now, we haven't talked about a lot of the spiritual things in our Connect series or in our Motivational Mondays yet, but she dives in. So she combines soul guidance and the Akashic records. I'm just curious. Drop 222 in the chat if you know what the Akashic records are. Some of you might. I just want to know. And practical business strategy to help her clients identify their zones of genius, step into powerful leadership, and live their purpose profitably. She is the author of an international best-selling book, Soul Fluent Leadership Business Guide, Amplify Your Message, Visibility, and Profits by Leveraging Your Archetype. And it supports leaders in staying grounded in their vision and primed to lead themselves and their organizations boldly into the future with confidence, courage, and sustainable growth. So, with all of that being said, there's more to her intro. She's a phenomenal woman. I could go on, but I have the same question for you, Priscilla. Where are the places in your life that you've been the lone wolf in your professional and personal life, and how did that affect you, and maybe how has that changed over time for you, especially with the work that you do now?
I have a different flavor. Thank you for your introduction, Kira. Hi, everyone. I'm so glad you're here. This is an important topic for us to be happy and healthy and deeply fulfilled and feel really like we're living a meaningful, purposeful life. I have a bit of a different take than Dr. Dave. I have actually been criticized often because I love getting support and asking for support from people. And the people are like, oh, you need to trust yourself and you don't need to be spending all this money and time. You can wing it. Certain things I can't, and I know where I can and where I can't. And my personality is such that I actually grow better. I talk through things and I feel the power of being witnessed in a container with somebody can be incredibly helpful. However, the other shadow side of me, and I just found this book, I started reading it yesterday called Too Much, a kind of a guide for the high functioning codependent person. I actually am a recovering person that has codependence, which for somebody that is so high functioning and doing all of the things, you would think I never thought of myself as codependent. But the problem with being codependent is that you actually overgive, overdo, overplease, overwork. And so the loneliness can come from that feeling of I'm giving to everyone else, but nobody's giving enough back to me. I feel underappreciated, unseen, unheard. Everyone else's emotions are more important than mine. They're all happy, but then, well, what about me? Nobody's holding space for me. Nobody's giving me a shoulder to cry on. Sorry, I love you. You're so great. You're so, because it can seem like we're always fine or getting along and doing all the things. And sometimes people don't realize that she's good, and then they take the goodness that I give them and they run because I'm the helper, right? The doer, the all of the things. It's natural, especially as a guide, as a coach, all those things. I love doing that, but at what expense, or is there balance? And I think she says in the book, going from too much to just right? That balance of not giving too much. So the loneliness can feel like you're over giving and not feeling appreciated, but then also then looking deeper at what are the underlying root causes that cause you to feel like you need to do that to be loved, validated, and all those things. So there can be many ways that we can feel like a lone wolf, not just one.
Wow. I so deeply relate to that. I think I think this comes with high achievers in general. And for any of you who are watching, you can drop 333 in the chat if you relate to it, where you do so much and you're good at it all, and everyone can come to you for everything and they know it, and you're reliable and you're efficient and you're consistent. but I know that for me, I use that as a shield. I know that if I felt like I couldn't help someone, I would feel inferior. I know that if I said no, I would feel inferior. I didn't have my own personal boundaries, which if you have listened to anything that I've ever done with Life Guys, I mention boundaries almost every single time that we talk about anything because it's not something that we're necessarily taught in society, especially in a society that is so focused on production. Like productivity is the Hail Mary, absolutely. Like that is the answer to everything. When in reality, it could very easily be the answer to why we struggle in so many ways as well. Because we can't do, well, I can't say that. We can do everything. Sure, I've done it. Priscilla's done it. I'm sure Dr. Dave has done it as well. But at what cost, right? And I used to use my ability to succeed and my eternal optimism as a shield for my vulnerability because I felt like if I couldn't do everything and if I couldn't show up and if I couldn't help everyone, I would feel like I was inferior and I wasn't enough and I wasn't worthy, all the deep layers, right? And I had to really learn how to be vulnerable. And your boundaries come from a place of vulnerability. Your standards come from a place of vulnerability. And your deep, meaningful connections that actually see you for who you are come from a place of vulnerability because a lot of the reasons why people see us as these people who can accomplish and can do everything is because that's the energy that we put out. Why would anyone know anything different when we have this face that says, I'm good, I'm great, but we go to bed at night and we're like, why am I so depleted? Why doesn't anyone help me? Why, when I try to ask someone for help, no one's there? Because they don't know, right? How can anyone know that you need help if you don't know how to ask for it, right? Or how can anyone know that you don't have the capacity to do something if you don't know how to say that you don't have the capacity? And this is where being human first comes in. This is where these conversations start to get birthed from in the way of we have yeah, there's just so much where we start to have these conversations and we start to feel better in ourselves. A lot of the internal satisfaction that we're talking about in being human first is about the way that you set yourself up for success, not the way that everyone sees you, not what we're told, but the way that we actually set ourselves up for success. And with that, when it comes to the reality of work satisfaction, and I'll ask you questions after. The reality, right, is that a lot of people are overworked. A lot of people are overstressed. A lot of people are really close to burnout. And a lot of people are in the urgency culture where like you're just told to do something and you do it immediately and you have this never ending to-do list and you just don't feel like you're getting anything done because there's no satisfaction in you being like, this is all I have the capacity in for and this is what I'm going to do today. But in a perfect world, right? If we were in Kira's perfect world, after all the things that I've learned through and after all the things that I've experienced, I would love, and this is what I've had to work on with myself, and it takes time, it takes years, it takes very intentionally resetting your mind and restructuring the way that you show up. It doesn't happen in a day. It's micro movement by micro movement. But work satisfaction in a perfect world, in my perfect world at the very least, would look like there's less stress. It would look like there are workplace boundaries, and workplace boundaries look like having the conversations of, I'm fully at my capacity. I was talking to one of my team members earlier, and they were like, yo, I'm not having the best mental health day. If I'm not responding to your messages, I'm laying in the grass with my dog and just like ping me again. I was like, I refuse to double ping you today because you deserve to have sunshine on your face and grass in between your toes and a freaking breather because we're human and we can't do it all, right? So those are some of the professional boundaries and those are some of the conversations that we can start to have in our workplaces of this is my capacity. Because if you're the type of person who looks like you can do everything and says that you can do everything, you will always get more. And more isn't always better at all. And chances are making the money that you imagine making and getting that title that you imagine getting and having the resume that you imagine having, when you actually get there, it doesn't solve all of the deeper rooted problems that you are trying to solve with all these external things. It's the deep inner work that gets you there. So when it comes to personal satisfaction, the reality, the world that we actually live in is, and drop 444 in the chat if you're one of these people. Do you think about work as soon as you wake up? Like the first thing? Do you dream about work? Do you think about work as you're going to bed? Is it like the thing that's like running over and over in your mind? That's kind of a problem. I think if you're running your own business, it's a very different story. And I think that there are seasons for that. But just overall, if that's your default, you might not have boundaries in your life. And you might place so much emphasis on your work life and not necessarily your personal life. But there's also the reality of the world that we live in. Do you have something to say? Say it, Dr. Dave.
Okay,
Saw
okay,
that.
okay,
I picked it up.
okay, okay. Just a little bit devil's advocate here. If you are also, trying to figure something out, sometimes thinking about a problem that you may have at work can help you if you do it in a structured way, you sleep on it, because you learn when you sleep. You don't learn when you're awake. So it could be like hey, I got to work through a problem, so I'm thinking about work. But I hear what you're saying. If it's a consistent chronic thing where you're thinking about work and it's becoming a loop or a cycle, or maybe you're even getting stuck in some sort of rumination, then yeah, I agree. 100% problem. Sorry, just wanted to add that in.
No, don't apologize. Yes, Priscilla, please, by all means, add to the conversation.
I did this exercise during a Tony Robbins event, and you guys can do it now or later that are listening, because I always thought, my values are family and my personal life first. Like that's the most important thing. At the time I was single, I wanted to. So my thought was this is a huge thing for me, my personal life, my friends, my dating, my well-being. And then there was professional. So the exercise is this: take a piece of paper or in your notebook or journal. I want you to make two circles. And you make the circle in proportion to how much space there actually is in your daily life now for work. So think of your career, business. So what size circle would it be? Would it be a dot? Would it be a sort of small circle? Would it be a big circle of how much energy, time, and resources career and work takes? Do that first. Just think of what comes to mind today. We're doing not what you want, but what's the truth today. And then I want you to think about your personal life. Time for yourself, time for your hobbies, time for caring for yourself, time for vacation, time with friends, time with your loved ones, family, partner, seeking a partner, children. How big of a circle is that? So just draw that and see how that comes up. For me, the point of the exercise for me was that I was absolutely shocked that my career circle at the time, in terms of how much energy it was taking, was this big. And for my personal life, it was literally a dot. I got the pen and I drew a dot. And that was a huge wake up moment, because in my brain, I'm like, of course not. This is so important. This is everything. But in the actual living of my daily experience, it was something that I was actually pushing out, because success, once I got successful, then I'll deal with those. It was an either or. In my mind, there wasn't room for both. So that could be a fun exercise to consider.
I think that's so beautiful. Dr. Dave, do you have something to say about the exercise?
I've tried to copy it, and I even tried to give it a go. Thank you, Priscilla. I appreciate that. I'm gonna give that a try. Another piece that I wanted to add is simple acronym uh, to help you assess yourself. I call it the heat check. Help everyone assess themselves. It's the tool that helps everyone assess themselves. The way that it works is you ask yourself, am I at a point where I can't perform my best? Uh, am I at a point where I need to make a change? And sometimes it's just personal changes, whether it be your hydration. I was on Monday motivation. I thought that was a good one, Kira. Good callback. But either way, if you can just check in with yourself, and sometimes when you're the workhorse, so to speak, you're the person who's always going to get it done. Sometimes you have to say, I'm going to go sit in the grass, or I'm going to, get some sun on my face. Just take a moment for myself so I'll be ready for the next run.
So beautiful. I think tangibly, I think this is a tangible tool that I've used. I've never done what Priscilla does. I'm going to do it as well. I've had to reprioritize my life to actually make my personal life circle big. But there's an exercise. It's called the 168 hours exercise. We have 168 hours in our week. And looking at your life a little bit bigger than a day, because some of our days are like really full, other days we might have space. But in the 168 hours exercise, you can be very specific about it and actually calculate like to the hour or half hour how much time you spend on everything, or you can just do your generalizations, whatever it is. But think about all the things that take up time in your life, um whether you go to school, whether you're learning a language like me, whether you have to commute to work, or you have to be at work for a specific amount of hours, or you cook dinner for you or your family every night, whatever it is, all the things. And it'll give you a real life snapshot of what your life actually looks like and what you prioritize. And it'll help you see the places exactly like what Priscilla says, where my personal bubble might be so big and my personal bubble might be a dot. Where are the places that I can add more time and more energy into my personal bubble? And where are the places that I can take away that might be a little bit unnecessary? So that might be a helpful exercise. If you Google 168 hours worksheet, there's actually a worksheet that you can use to calculate all of that, and it gives you some categories, but they're not that many categories. And I think we just all have like more dynamic experiences than that. But the last thing I'll say, personal satisfaction in a perfect world is you finish work and your mind finishes work. And what Dr. Dave said, thank you so much for being the advocate for the other side of things, because sometimes I can generalize things too much and I like having the other side. But in like most days, you stop thinking about work when you're done, or you have hobbies that you love that you're able to do that take your mind off of all the things that you have to do. And then also, in a perfect world, personal satisfaction looks like you are internally balanced, where you feel good. You feel good about your relationships and your friendships. You feel good about your professional life, and you feel like you're able to balance these areas of your life really well. So, with that, we have Priscilla that's going to talk a little bit about the seasons of life, because that's also so helpful in realizing our capacity and the ways that we can actually show up, because we can't show up the same way every single day for the rest of our lives. Things change. So, without further ado, Priscilla, please tell us about the seasons.
I will. And I want to add one other tool that how I think about my life in core categories. There are three core levers I think of: health, wealth, and relationships, right? I add home to that for me. Last year, when my dog was sick, I did an assessment of how much energy my home life was taking: groceries, cooking, bringing the groceries back, managing and paying bills, taking care of my dog. If you have pets or children, that's a whole other category. Um, and um, and so then just and then I see my year in quarters, right? Because I run a business too. So I've had think of a theme of how I want to feel in the year, the areas that I want to grow in, and I give myself three core milestones that are must. You know, this year it's overcoming grief because I lost my dog. It's growing a branch of my business that's very important to me, and it's deepening my sense of relationships overall, including with myself. Those are the bigger parameters, and I break it down into quarters and then months and then even further. I'm kind of a project management type person. But I always think about how what do I need for my own personal health and wellness. Wealth speaks to also just career, business, money, wealth in all the ways. And then relationships, spiritual, with myself, with my friends, with my family, with my coworkers, and so on. And you can define these in different ways, but and for me, living my purpose is how I feel most satisfaction. And so just acknowledging, what do you need to feel like you're growing, to feel like you are satisfied, right? That there's meaning and purpose. Like, what do you need to keep you moving forward in life? For me, it's meaning. And for me, that's feeling like I'm progressing. There's no progress as a human. I think we feel really stagnant and frustrated. And so noticing where are there maybe stagnant energy, where are you stuck, where can you need help? And there's no shame in that. But just doing kind of an overall assessment can be really valuable. And it doesn't take a lot of time. So I just wanted to share that. I know that was a lot in a very short amount of time, but just something, it goes back to what I said to you, Kira. When we know ourselves better, we lead better. And there is a dose of truth serum that's really important for us to be accountable and be in integrity with ourselves so that we don't self-abandon for things that don't matter as much, or perpetuate cycles and patterns and habits that are the old version of ourselves, not who we're becoming and the kind of person that we want to become moving forward. That being said, talking about the seasons, right? I want to go back to what you were saying, Kira, about productivity and our humanness and our humanity. I have found that the go, 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 be productive, don't, be on call, be available, do better, grow, like this linear progression of infinite growth, which is so not seasonal and cyclical, which is really our nature, nature's cycles, old seasons, and also how we heal. We don't heal in a linear way, we heal in a cyclical way. Productivity and go, 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 and endless growth is not human and it's not humane because it does not, to me, it implies that being human, needing to take time off when you're grieving, when you're hurt, when you had a child, when life events happen, good, bad, and everything in between, you're not really given permission. Oh, you got to be back at work in 2 days, or, oh my gosh, I have all these emails and I feel so bad. And what are people going to think? So I want to invite the possibility of seasonality and acknowledging the seasons that we are in our personal lives, in our careers, and in our business, and in anything. It can be in your health, in your relationships, in a project, with a habit, with something you're working on, like with a language. What season are you in? Are you just starting out? Are you kind of, oh my gosh, I'm starting to be fluent and this is exciting. I'm going to learn more, extra slang here. I'm going to go take an immersive course. And so when we embrace the concept of seasons, which is we are a part of nature, and nature naturally goes through winter, spring, summer, and fall. So if we can embrace the seasons, we can start to give ourselves a ton of grace and also reap the incredible golden nuggets of wisdom of the energies of each season, right? So imagine that you live someplace, or imagine a place that has all 4 seasons. So I want to talk about the seasons and the fertile soil that makes this concept of seasons really powerful for us, so we can really harness the magic of where we are instead of fighting it and resisting it because we think it's not endless growth, right? So let's go back for a moment to the soil and the foundation of what makes us so powerful. If we get off of autopilot and all the shoulds and the musts, we always have, I want you to think about these things, and maybe it's time for a 5-5-5 here at some point. I want you to think of 3 different areas and just make a note. You can work on these later because we won't have time to go through all of them. What are your core values? Top 3 or 5, right? For me, it's freedom, flexibility, connection, adventure. Like how much are they actually being expressed and fed in your life today? Do you feel free? Do you feel connected? Do you feel adventurous? Do you feel alive? Do you feel vitality? Just notice what those are, because those are the filters through which you make all your decisions. The second one are, what are your core needs right now? What do you really need to feel satisfied? Not what you think you must do, but what, your heart, soul, and your body craves and your psyche craves. And are they being met at all, or how much? And the big one, capacity. how much capacity do you have to give to yourself and to your work right now? For example, I am deeply in grief, right? I am not at the capacity of like, woohoo, I'm going to be excited in a bubble of joy, even though I might seem happy today. I am utterly heartbroken. So, are you going through a transition? Have you had a health crisis? Have you had a aging parent? Do you just have a child? Are you going through a promotion or a demotion, or did you get fired? Are you going through a midlife awakening, as I call it, not a crisis? Where are you and how much capacity does that give you right now? Not good or bad, but just assessing core values, core needs, what's nourishing you, and your capacity. And then ask yourself the feeling, what does satisfaction actually feel like to you? Is it vitality? Is it peace? Is it joy? Is it awe? Is it a sense of wonder? Is it just, I just want to stop worrying so much? Whatever that is, just be honest and create that soil for you to reconnect and come home to the truth of what's true for you today, right? Not just tomorrow, who you were yesterday. Who you are today is already growing. And that's the key part of it, is that we are always an evolving target. We started to kind of think like, oh, I'm just this person. I'm here now. I'm going to stay here. Nope. The seasons don't stop. They keep moving, and they move in a loop, a continuum. There's wisdom to that too. So just something to consider. And so now, if we think of these as the soil, the fertile ground, the foundation of what makes us stay true to ourselves, I want you to think of the seasons maybe as a tree, right? If you see a tree going through different seasons, there's the spring, there's the spring, the buds, and then eventually winter, autumn and winter, it's all barren. So let's look at the seasons themselves. So there are 4 seasons, right? Start with spring, there's creation. With summer, there's growth. With autumn, there's the harvesting. And then in winter, there's destruction, death, and rebirth. Each season has perfection, wisdom, magic, and beauty to it. So any resistance that you feel to any particular season, just beware. Notice, you can say in the chat, I don't like these seasons. So just think about, what season of life do you think you are in right now personally, right? So the spring season is when you're planning and seeding, and it's kind of a sense of initiation. You're just starting, like with a new language, right? Today I'm going to start to learn Spanish, right? That's the decision, you're starting. Summer is growth. You're tending, you're watering, you're expanding, right? There's some momentum, there's some progression. You planted some seeds, and now it's like, oof, they're beginning to see some little things sprout. This is exciting. Autumn is when there's a peak, the harvest. You're beginning to enjoy the fruits of your labor. Maybe your business is booming. Maybe your career, you got a promotion. It's exciting, like, woo! And then comes winter, which I think is the season we most misunderstand and dislike in the culture of summer, growth, 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 growth. And winter is about resting, dying, letting go. It's the season of the mystery, of having more questions than you have answers. When it feels the darkest, but there's also so much that happens when it looks under the surface, even though above the surface we can't see anything. So I want you to think about then, what season of life are you in? And then also, what season in your career or your health, whatever, or your relationships, whatever is active for you. You may notice, like for me, I have 2 seasons that are actually at odds, and it's been a bit of a kink for me. My personal season is I'm in winter. I'm deeply grieving the loss of something that was very dear to me. And it's shut down and stopped so much. Like, I don't recognize myself. My mental health has been affected. I've had to learn new ways of coping, of looking at myself, of understanding and facing emotions that I never had. And I hate it. I did not enjoy any of it. I was like, I don't want to be here. Get me out of here. This is annoying. I don't understand this. This is painful. Get me out. Until I was reminded I'm here. The way out is always through. And so how can we embrace the wisdom here and let it alchemize us and support us into whatever the next season is, which will eventually come? And then number two is I want you to explore the survival instincts and the limiting beliefs that come up based on the season that you're in. Like for me, my business is in a growth season. I don't have the capacity to go at 1,000,000 miles an hour because if somebody looks at me on any given day, I'm going to look really sad. I don't have the capacity to take on as many clients as before. I just don't. I'm exhausted and I need to focus on my own well being, right? And so having grace with where I am can be really, really helpful and very valuable information. And then I want you to work with your body's wisdom to activate the energy of each season. And I want to introduce the concept of archetypes. And archetypes are energies that are in the collective unconscious that we all can think of. Think of the goddess or the warrior or the lover, right? We can all conjure images and energies. So I want to give you 4 archetypes, one for each of the seasons, just for you to just see what energies and feelings they conjure up. So for the winter season, it's the destroyer archetype, right? This is where we get to break down, let go, and let parts of us die, right? That need to be let go of, to be mourned, to be grieved, to be embraced. And so, what wants to be destroyed so room for rebirth and regrowth can happen in your life? Is it letting go of a friendship, of a partnership, a career, a job, a sense of identity, something that gave you validation and meaning, but really isn't true or aligned for you anymore? Spring is the Fool archetype. This is a place to be curious, adventurous, a little carefree, to be willing to try new things and to look foolish as you're trying them, not to try to be perfectionist, but say, what would the fool do here? Just if we just gave it some room to speak to us, right? And this is the time to try new things and to start to plant new seeds. Then there's the summer, the lover archetype, the time of growth and expansion. What are you in love with? How do you want to spread the love of what you're expanding into the world? How do you want to tend to the seeds that you've already planted? How can you stay true to yourself without overworking, overdoing, or self-sabotaging? What would the lover do? And autumn is the sovereign archetype. This is the time to be the king or the queen, to really harvest the bounty of what you have created, have compassion for any failures or missteps, and to kind of reinvigorate yourself and to acknowledge and celebrate what you have accomplished. And so the 4 archetypes were the destroyer for winter, the fool for spring, the lover for summer, and the sovereign for autumn. And I could go on for a lot more, which I don't have time for. But then you can, thinking about your season, if an archetype resonates for you, create a strategy and an action plan of like, okay, like for me, I'm in winter. I have a life guides grief counselor actually that helps me. I've had to bring in a lot of physical and emotional support to help me manage all of the like unexpected changes that I'm dealing with now. And also then compassion and a lot more space in my days for mental health days, for breakdown days, for I'm really not okay days. New boundaries, new ways of communicating, not letting people give me all their opinions about, what grief is or grief isn't. And then you need to just track where you are with your season. There will come a point too that you start to feel like you're ready to exit that season and then step into the new one. So explore what season of life you're in. It could be in any part of there's so many aspects of your life. Are there any survival instincts and limiting beliefs that are blocking you? You can communicate with the energy of the archetype and see what it has to tell you. Create a strategy and an action plan to help you through your season, and then stay on track to see how you're progressing through that season and when it might be time to move forward. So yeah, those are just some concepts to think about so that you can really work with the season and work with life instead of against it.
Let that breathe for a moment.
Yeah, that's a lot
I
of,
have,
I know, to go fast.
well, no, that's good. I mean, there's so much in there that I have to definitely go back in the recording and listen again to catch all of it. But I wanted to say first, thank you so much for sharing what you're going through. Grief and, as you described it, winter, just pieces of winter I didn't know about until hearing your description. So I appreciate you being vulnerable enough to share that with us, and I'm glad you're also using the tools around you to make it make it work. And okay, so this is a question I have because I work with people who are high achieving, uh, highly educated, and from every range, those people have a difficulty at times giving themselves grace, giving themselves time, or people who are highly motivated, maybe even who are working on a new business, and they're usually the one to gets it all done. How do you how can you help someone in that position give themselves more grace? That's been a tough nut for me to crack, to use bad euphemism. But
I
yeah,
do
what do
three
you think?
things now because I can do so much that I don't realize what I do, how much I actually have gotten accomplished, because I have such a high bar. So number one is I do have a friend or a colleague, or it could be a life guide that witnesses me and can reflect back to me how much I've done and where grace can come in. So it can be somebody that can be a mirror back to me. You can call it a grace buddy, maybe. The second one is I have sort of built into myself is that when I am feeling over capacity, overstretched, over like I'm not doing well, I'm like, okay, maybe I'm over, maybe I need to take a step back. Like it's my point of saying, okay, it's something's off. And then it's like, okay, I need to just stop and just assess and give myself grace. And the third one is that I actually started, which was I don't do it well enough, but I started making a list. I keep a little notebook and I make a list of the things that even just high and like high overview. These, oh, I'm like, oh, I haven't made a done all this. And then I was like, but actually I've done all of these things on the wellness side. Like just this last week, I got my primary doctor, I got my gynecologist in, I got blood work done, I got, some tests done. I'm like, wow, I got all of this done in like 2 weeks. Oh, no wonder my energy went there. I didn't get as much done on the business side, but because I intuitively knew that was a priority. If I'm not well physically and mentally, I don't have much to give to me, to the world, right? So health is wealth, got that first down. And now I'm going to focus on businesses next. I've also been working on relationships. So I do make a little note so I can track what's actually being done versus what my brain distorts and contorts to what was and wasn't done. And I just had to do like a mental assessment at the end of the week. Well, what actually got done? What didn't? And so even if you do that on a little, Google Doc or a little email or piece of paper, it's like, okay, what happened this week? Or look at your calendar. It's like, yes. And so just taking a step back instead of just go, 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 go. Grace comes from awareness. From grace comes from space. And so give yourself the space for grace. And that means self-reflection and taking a moment to really look back and say, what did I do? What did work? What what can I be proud of? Um, and and then just sometimes I just need to sit down and say, I'm exhausted. I'm really sad. This is really, really hard. Whatever the situation is you're going through, or I'm really going for something really vulnerable, like a big dream or a promotion or a career shift. Look at all the energy and the courage that that takes. That's not a small thing. Society does it. These are the things that happen. I saw Lisa Nichols say something about this. Who what kind of a man or a woman are you in the darkness of the night, in the middle of the night when nobody can see you? What are you um, really doing? Like courage, resilience, honor, integrity, persistence, devotion. These are big things that we're going through. And so having the grace to acknowledge, like, this is what it's really taking for me to stay the course, for me not to give up on myself, for me to face the hard things, to say and do the hard things, to shift my behaviors. So I think giving ourselves this grace to also acknowledge, dare I say, celebrate what we're really doing is, I think, a huge action of compassion and grace. Um, and it's a practice just like any other. But without grace, so we really shortchange our well-being, we shortchange the progress we're really making, and above all, we shortchange our humanity and our humanness. So grace, space for grace, I think, is really valuable, and that can be a moving target too, day to day. Does that answer the question?
More than you can imagine. It answers the question, creates opportunity for more discussion and deeper self-reflection. So thank you.
Yeah,
I appreciate that.
sure.
Wow. This is such a good conversation. I feel like, Priscilla, your wisdom is really powerful and really deep, but in a way that's easy to understand, which is sometimes some of the struggle that we get into. Um, is like these are really deep concepts, and these are really powerful ways to reprogram, and the way that you're able to lay them out so easily is so beautiful. And I'm sitting here, there was a point where I just had like this huge grin on my face, and I don't know if you can tell, my eyes are getting teary. um You know, I wish that when I was at the height of my productivity, that I could listen to these conversations, and that I could realize that there's so much more, and that life is this flux, and that things are always shifting, and that there's so much more to life, right? And the fact that the three of us get to sit here bringing this wisdom together and sharing our perspectives is so beautiful. And I remember parts of me where productivity was the most important thing, and where I didn't want to create the space for me, and I wanted to create the space for all of my work, because if I slowed down, that I would have to feel what I was actually feeling, and what I was feeling wasn't good, and I didn't want to feel that. And to be on the other side, right, where I'm like, where we can have winters, where life can be sometimes a chaotic mess that we don't always have a hold of, but knowing that like it's just a season, it happens. We will all go through it. And that's the thing with Priscilla's teaching of these seasons, is that once you realize that wherever you are, it will change, it gives you more permission to sit with it and acknowledge that, yes, it's temporary. Yes, it's going to evolve. Yes, you're going to grow through it. It allows you to be there without fighting it, thinking that you're going to be there forever, because life will always evolve and change and grow. So that's one of the things as well, is like, if you use productivity as your shield for everything else in your life that maybe doesn't feel that great, maybe allow yourself to have more support and space. And that's what Life Guides is here for. Like, we're not machines, we are humans. It is normal to have seasons, it is normal to have emotions, it is normal to feel things, it's normal to grow, it's normal to fall down, and to have someone helping you on that journey is really beautiful. So, as we're coming to an end, Dr. Dave, Priscilla, maybe a minute each if you have any final comments. And then I want to pull the survey up for the end of our series survey, so that we can see really how you've grown over this time. And then from there, we'll close it out, and I'll share with you what we have coming in the next seasons.
I'll keep it short. I heard a recent song, Brother Ali. Get your head right, heart right, hands right. Your head, your mentals, your heart, what you're putting in your body, what you're working with, your hands, what you're building. That's all. Thank you so much, Priscilla. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Dave. I think I just want to leave people with this reminder to trust your inner knowing. And it can be challenging to feel like you can trust yourself sometimes when you've made mistakes, when things haven't worked out, or even trust life if you feel like life has just kind of thrown you for a loop in the washing machine. But you do have an inner knowing. And you are stronger than sometimes you give yourself credit for. So be willing to be brave, to face the things that are hard to feel and to address. Take baby steps. If you need somebody to witness you or to hold space for you to talk things through, Life Guides is a fantastic place to come. I've leaned into it the last 3.5 years myself, and it's been such a fertile space for growth and to be witnessed. And oftentimes, healing doesn't happen in a vacuum. Healing and growth happens in being witnessed in community. And so give yourself that wisdom and that gift. And also, my final question for your season is, if I truly allowed myself to harvest the gifts of the wisdom of the season I'm in, how could I grow and become better as a result, right? That can be a nice way to counter any resistance that comes from the fear of being in a season. So yeah, that's my 2 cents.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. I just dropped Priscilla's Life Guides profile in the chat for everyone. So, if you resonated with her and if you're like, I would love to have a one-on-one conversation with her where we could go through the seasons or where, because some of you even said in the chat, I can't answer any of these questions. I don't know my values. And if you don't know your values, you don't have a compass. And if you don't have a compass guiding you through the seasons, then it can get real scary real quick. So that's why we have guides here for you, right? So what the rest of our programming looks like for Being Human First, we have one more session for you to join us. Next week we have a live mentorship session it's a group mentoring with one of our guides specifically on work and life satisfaction and how to redefine that. So some of the things that we talked about will literally help you on that call as if it was a one-on-one guide call, except it's more in a group setting. You get to hear from each other, we get to bounce ideas. It's meeting style, so your face will actually be there if you want it to be there, and your voice will actually be there if you want it to be there, and it's a beautiful space. So I'm going to drop the link in the chat for you to join us for that. And then we also, oh my gosh, we're stepping into our next season, which starts in April. We will be doing our well-being series. I don't have a fun little cute little name for it yet, but I will. Don't you worry. There will be a cute name for it, but it's our well-being series. So, I actually have the calendar up right now, I believe. Oh, I don't. Well, we are going to be 1 month, we'll be focusing on physical well-being. The next month, we'll be talking about emotional well-being. And the next month, we will be talking about mental well-being. And the way that our programming works is we have just like what Priscilla talked about with how we look at our year, like what's the main theme? How are we breaking it down into quarters? How are we breaking it down into months? And how are we breaking it down into weeks? Our quarterly topic is well-being. Our monthly topic, physical, mental, and emotional well-being. And that'll be in our being or in our well-being connect session once a month, just like this. And then our motivational Mondays, which happen every Monday of the month, will follow those specific categories. So 1 month it'll be all physical well-being on motivational Monday, the next month emotional, the next month mental. So all of our programming is created so that you have as many touch points as possible to be on this journey of growing. So being human first, we've had all these touch points. I'm going to drop our link for our link tree in the chat. And our link tree is where you can find the links to all of our recordings, all of our worksheets, our YouTube channel, everything. So if you want to go back and watch the other 2 episodes of Being Human First, or if you want to learn about the hydration episode that Dr. Dave mentioned of Motivational Monday, all of that is there for you. And I believe that's the most of what our upcoming programming looks like. All of our registration links are in that link tree below. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them. But other than that, thank you all so much for being here and for tuning into this conversation. I know that it is maybe even more meaningful for us on our giving side to be able to have these conversations and to make sure that there are people hearing the narratives that are a little bit different, but wildly important. So thank you, Priscilla, for being here. Thank you, Dr. Dave. Thank you both for your time. It is a joy and a pleasure, and we will see you all very soon. Have a beautiful rest of your March, and we will catch you in April. Bye,
Bye,
everyone.
everyone.